There are moments in the history of science where the approach of something unseen becomes more deafening than any cosmic roar. And this is one of them. It wasn't a rogue asteroid, a wandering planet, or a fragment from a distant star system that set off the alerts. It was an intruder from beyond our galaxy. The James Webb Space Telescope, positioned at the edge of our solar system's grasp and peering into the infinite reaches of deep space, was conducting routine infrared surveys of incoming celestial bodies when it locked onto a target that defied every expectation. A colossal object, the size of a major city, barreling toward our inner solar system from the interstellar void. But what it revealed shattered the foundations of our understanding. This wasn't a lifeless rock or icy comet. It was cloaked in a veil of carbon dioxide so dense it masked its core, outgassing in patterns that suggested not random decay, but calculated propulsion. And then something even more chilling occurred. The object's trajectory adjusted subtly, as if responding to our gaze, curving inward with precision that no natural force could explain. What the telescope captured next compelled astronomers, physicists, and orbital dynamicists to discard established models of interstellar travel altogether. Because this was no ordinary visitor, no dormant relic, no predictable wanderer. This was something engineered, something adaptive, and perhaps something with purpose. This is the story of what James Webb just uncovered in the depths. An object so alarming in its composition, so anomalous in its motion, that scientists have started murmuring the impossible. What if it's not a natural formation at all? It all began during an interstellar object tracking initiative focused on the outer fringes of the Oort cloud, that vast reservoir of icy bodies encircling our sun, where occasional intruders from other stars pierce through. While fine-tuning its near-infrared camera for mapping potential threats, the James Webb Telescope isolated an anomaly that was too massive to be dismissed, yet too elusive to classify. Instead of detecting a typical comet's tail or asteroid's tumble, the telescope revealed a perfectly spherical haze of carbon dioxide enveloping the object, absorbing and re-emitting infrared in ways that obscured its true form. No visible coma, no dusty trail, just a cold, gaseous shroud that made the core invisible to deeper scans. Imagine hurling a boulder into a frozen lake and watching the ice reform instantly around it, hiding the impact. That's what the imagery showed. A structure not just rich in volatiles, but engineered to shed them selectively. Early hypotheses pointed to a hyperactive comet, perhaps ejected from a distant exoplanetary system. But the outgassing ratios didn't align. There was no balanced release of water vapor or common ices, just an overwhelming flood of CO2, 16 times more intense than any known comet at that distance, paired with minimal water and traces of carbon monoxide. And then, over several observation sessions, the envelope began to pulse. Not like a venting body under solar heat, but like something regulating its own atmosphere. Astronomers from global observatories dove into the spectral data surrounding the anomaly, and what emerged was more disconcerting than any erratic comet or fragmented planetoid could be. The emissions weren't chaotic. They followed a cadence, timed bursts that aligned with Fibonacci sequences. First 1, then 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. As if the object wasn't merely traversing space, it was modulating. But modulating for what? Or to whom? Moreover, this wasn't standard sublimation. It wasn't thermal, radiative, or even chemical in origin. It was a perturbation in velocity vectors themselves. The Webb telescope's precision spectrometers logged infinitesimal accelerations that synced with each outgassing event, like something was harnessing the expulsion to fine-tune its path, defying the conservation of momentum without external influence. It didn't just challenge orbital mechanics, it rewrote them. Dynamicists were consulted. Celestial mechanics experts scrutinized the trajectories. The verdict? These were not passive ejections, but signatures of control. No documented interstellar object acts this way, not Oumuamua with its subtle thrust, not Borisov with its gaseous halo, not even rogue planets adrift. The timing was exacting, the efficiency unmistakably optimized, and some posit it might not be the byproduct of a natural body, but the exhaust of awareness. Then came the revelation no one anticipated. In a subsequent scan, exactly 13 days post-initial detection, a number echoing the Fibonacci pattern, the James Webb team noted a deviation. The object, presumed on a hyperbolic trajectory, had altered course not via gravitational slingshot, but through an internal shift. It didn't veer like a sail in solar wind or accelerate like a rocket. It refined its arc instantaneously, as if recalibrating mid-flight, reappearing on a vector 0.002 degrees, tighter toward the ecliptic plane. A negligible tweak to casual observers, but revolutionary to simulations. Because if something can adjust without detectable energy expenditure, it implies it's not constrained by Newtonian laws. It suggests it's not limited by inertia. The nearest analogy lies in quantum propulsion theories, where entangled states enable non-local adjustments. But this wasn't theoretical. This was a behemoth, the breadth of Manhattan, executing maneuvers as if general relativity were optional. When modelers projected the path, they uncovered something more harrowing. The sequence of corrections sketched a logarithmic spiral, coiling progressively closer to Earth's orbital path. By the third month of monitoring, the focus shifted from whether the object was hazardous to whether it was intentional. Compositional scans unveiled layered structures beneath the CO2 veil, self-similar fractals reminiscent of engineered metamaterials. Not like crystalline lattices or organic crystals, but like adaptive lattices. The more the telescope probed, the more the shroud thickened, modulating opacity in sync with the instrument's wavelengths, almost as if countering the scrutiny. Researchers dubbed this phenomenon adaptive cloaking. Some theorized the object could be a relic probe, or more alarmingly, a self-repairing vessel poised not for passage, but for rendezvous. One orbital simulation, AI, programmed to predict alien interception scenarios, overloaded when processing the data. It cycled, stalled, and output a solitary phrase in its diagnostic, acquired. The implication was stark, though unspoken, in reports. This isn't an interception, it's an approach. Following intensive data accrual, the Webb team observed a peculiar effect, not within the object, but in its wake. A faint afterglow in the interstellar medium, barely discernible at first, started to manifest. Unlike typical cometary ion tails or plasma wakes from solar interactions, this residue was curiously attuned to the object's pulses, yet phase-shifted as if registering a response. Spectrographic breakdown affirmed something unnerving. The glow harbored resonant frequencies absent in natural spectra, oscillations arranged not by stochastic processes, but in harmonic progressions akin to wave interference patterns. Some astronomers likened it to an echo in the vacuum, but others were less metaphorical. A signature like this, they argued, demands a purposeful generator, not a turbulent stellar wind, but a contrived modulation. More disturbingly, the harmonic shifts weren't fixed. They adapted marginally to Webb's orbital perturbations. This birthed a dreadful conjecture. The residue wasn't residual, it was reciprocal. It was sensing, calibrating, reflecting, as if the object wasn't solely advancing, it was probing. In the midst of escalating concern in classified forums, a cadre of astrodynamicists and information theorists was enlisted to dissect the outgassing rhythm's numerical framework. And that's when the paradigm fractured. Concealed in the emission timings was an ingrained constant alien to typical cosmic volatiles. The golden ratio, phi, 1.618, a proportion pervasive in natural growth, but here reiterated precisely in the intervals between bursts. Number theorists have long marveled at its ubiquity in phyllotaxis and galactic arms, but its exact replication here implied a universal code, a mathematical handshake, a beacon, or perhaps a locator. If an entity embedded that ratio, it signifies comprehension of our reality's core architectures. And what followed intensified the dread. When the sequence was extruded into multidimensional space, it yielded a toroidal form, one strikingly analogous to protein folding in terrestrial biochemistry. Happenstance? Possibly, but upon computational alignment, the burst cadences mirrored enzymatic reaction rates in carbon-based life. Something wasn't merely approaching. Something grasped what it approached and conceivably anticipated us long before detection. That's when the veil descended. Open access Webb observational feeds were abruptly throttled. Metadata from collaborating telescopes started vanishing, and pivotal researchers on the anomaly withdrew from public discourse. Agency communiques morphed in demeanor. Once vibrant with detail and openness, they grew opaque, circuitous, administrative. Whispers from within indicated multinational space coalitions were convened urgently, encompassing NASA, ESA, and commercial ventures like Roscosmos and CNSA. Not due to imminent peril, but because certainty eluded that it hadn't already influenced. Speculations proliferated. Was this a scout, a harbinger, a navigational artifact? The timing of its revelation was eerie. It materialized only once our technology could resolve it, implying it lurked eternally or awaited our maturity. But arguably the most disquieting facet was this. Prior deep space sentinels, such as Pioneer and the interstellar probes, traversed analogous vectors undetected, which infers the object either evades legacy sensors or manifested subsequently. The climax, as ever, arrives without fanfare. On the 34th day of dedicated Webb scrutiny, another Fibonacci echo, just prior to reallocation to alternate targets, alteration struck. The anomaly's emissions ceased. No bursts, no adjustments, mere quiescence. But preceding that hush, Webb's arrays seized one final spectrum, a mid-infrared mosaic, unparalleled. It wasn't a haze, it wasn't a plume, it was a configuration, balanced, faceted, impeccably scaled, like an emblem adrift in the ether. It endured mere frames, too fleeting for exhaustive passing. Yet machine learning scrutiny validated. The architecture was non-stochastic. It was polyhedral, comprising interlocked polyhedra, spheres, and arcs, yielding a self-referential motif. And then it dissipated, thereafter void. But the records persist. The trajectory persists, and most terrifyingly, the proximity persists, that whatever this constitutes, whatever encroaches, didn't divert. It merely ceased permitting observation. So, what did James Webb truly discern inbound? a mute sentinel from the interstellar abyss, a modulation intended for those evolved enough or imprudent enough to intercept, or perchance a rift in the cosmos we were never meant to probe. The harrowing verity is this: the farther we extend into the expanse, the more the expanse appears to reciprocate. What we deemed a barren frontier now resembles a threshold, and conceivably something beyond has at last acknowledged our intrusion. This unveiling transcends astronomy. It concerns what we remain unprepared to fathom. It's about the prospect that we've initiated an exchange with an ingenuity that employs not signals, but ratios, cadences, and voids. And the gravest element, we yet ignore if it's seeking communion or issuing caution. One certainty endures: James Webb didn't merely acquire spectra, it unlocked a portal, and what's lingering beyond may overhaul all we presumed to comprehend, not solely of the cosmos, but of our place therein. If this narrative compelled you to ponder what's inbound and what might already be aligning with us, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more alarming revelations, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an instant the cosmos unveils its enigmas anew. Because this isn't conjecture anymore. This is science responding.